Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN, powered by the Midwest Coalition of Labor. My name is Ken Edwards with the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting to my left today is the greatest carpenter that I know.
That's right.
Besides Jesus, and that is Phil Davidson. Sitting in for Ed Maher today. Phil is with the Mid-America Carpenters Regional Council. Thanks for sitting in for Ed today, Phil.
My pleasure.
You were here for me for a while, and you guys played Where's Ken, and that was funny. Haha. And so, where's Ed today?
He's one-upping you.
He certainly is, Mr. International traveler. I think
jet setter, yeah.
I think he may be in Mexico.
Yes.
That's how you say it.
Let's hope he doesn't get Montezuma's revenge.
On the plane on the way home.
He's got a strong constitution, though. I don't worry about him.
He's a big boy.
There's no Where's Phil, because the farthest I go is pretty much Sheboygan. So, yeah.
Yeah, you never really hear Where's Phil.
No. Just keeping it real on the Northwest side.
Well, you work for the Carpenters, and they don't let you really leave like a 30-mile radius.
Nope.
Right?
I am devoted to the job.
I know you are. So, big, obviously, weekend, Phil, right? It's Labor Day weekend.
This is our Super Bowl.
This is our Super Bowl, working people's Super Bowl. And any plans for you for tomorrow?
Yeah, I will be celebrating with friends and family, but we will be observing all of the sacrifices made by the labor community.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
Yeah, how about yourself?
I was saying probably have a barbecue, literally just going to relax because work has been brutal. So I really could use it's nice to have a 3-day weekend, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. So this son says to his father, he says, "Hey, Dad, what class are we?" And the father says, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, are we middle class? Are we upper class? Are we lower class?" And the father says to him, "We're working class. All those other terms were created by the rich to divide us." And I like that.
I like that a lot.
I thought that was pretty cool. And this weekend...
That should be a proverb.
It should be a proverb. Yeah, maybe it is a proverb. I don't know. And this weekend, people have to recognize, and I think you're starting to see this... there was a recent Gallup poll, Phil, that had once again unions, like not only, crazy super majority people favored unions, but this one took it even further and said that the people now wanted to have unions have more power. And I think they're starting to realize that, wait a second, the wealthy might not have our best interests in heart,
I hate to break it to you, but yeah, sometimes it takes several hundred years to have that message at home, but yeah, it's...
So yeah, after, 200 plus years of labor days,
yeah.
People are starting to realize, wait a second, maybe unions are a good thing and we should give them more power, not less.
This is the summer of labor, man.
Yeah,
summer of George, summer of labor.
I think that's right. So I wanted to do a test run with you to see what labor might look like in the future.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to be a computer and you're going to be the human. And I want you to engage me in terms of labor.
So you're Chat GPT, but you're the KenBot.
KenBot is good.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, KenBot.
And I give credit where credit's due to Jude from Da Vinci Street Productions, who came up with KenBot.
Oh, yes.
Pretty funny.
Congratulations. Very clever.
You just got your first shout out.
Yep.
Yeah, don't let it go to your head.
He's a true creative. All right.
All right, so I'm KenBot. Ask me what's Labor Day.
KenBot.
Yes.
What is Labor Day?
Yes. Labor Day has not occurred yet.
KenBot, I'm not sure that's correct. Can you elaborate?
Yes. Labor Day will be will start when us robots take over all of your human jobs.
KenBot, stop. This is harrowing.
Does that sound good?
Doesn't sound good at all.
That sounds like a you problem. Anyway, that's the future of labor and AI. That was an original.
Round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah,
that is the Workers' Mic Players, everybody.
But I hope you understand my point is that, let's finish this fight with AI actors and Teamsters and UAW and writers. Let's end this fight and let's not let AI, which is the new immigrant, if you will,
yep.
Take our jobs. But I think this threat is actually real. And, I was listening to...
we joke. That actually is a plausible scenario.
It's an absolute plausible scenario.
It really
because you're watching... I heard this morning, and we're going to take a quick break after this. We have Bob Bruno coming in.
The best.
Professor Bob Bruno is just the smartest guy in the world to talk about the origins of Labor Day and maybe some other things that we can get him to stay on. But I was listening to the radio on the way in, and guess what? DePaul University is opening up a major in artificial intelligence. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Where do you think that's going to go? I mean, come on. Like, we're literally creating our own demise. So let's stop that. And we're looking to the unions to help us stop that. So really do mean it, like writers, et cetera, SAG-AFTRA. Let's end that discussion.
Yeah, they're the most high-profile
victim
of all this right now. But as we know, it is going to touch
truck
everyone.
drivers.
Yes.
There's driverless cars now in San Francisco that are going to replace Uber drivers, right? And Uber drivers are like, oh, Uber drivers are replacing taxi drivers. Well, now AI is going to replace Uber drivers. So
yes.
It's just once again, a race to the bottom. So unions need to step up, and we do need to have more power, to be blunt with you, and we can stop things like this given the right set of tools. So we're going to take a quick break.
Yep.
And then we're going to be back with Professor Bob Bruno right here on the Workers' Mic 720 WGN.
Welcome back to the Workers' Mic on 720 WGN. I'm Phil Davidson with the Mid-America Carpenters Union, and here with me, as always, is Ken Edwards from the Midwest Coalition of Labor, and we have a special guest here for our Labor Day edition. We have Professor Bob Bruno from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He is a professor of labor history. Welcome, Bob.
Welcome, Bob.
Hey, thank you, folks. It's a real pleasure to be back on the program. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Obviously, this is our holiday, right?
Yes.
This is a workers' holiday. And
the WWF has WrestleMania. Labor people have Labor Day.
Finally.
Finally.
And so maybe this year it's not just about barbecuing anymore. Maybe people are actually starting to realize that Labor Day actually means labor and working issues and people, and it's not just about the beer and hot dogs.
I think you're right. I think people are thinking twice and recognizing the importance of this day and what was all fought for on their behalf.
So, Bob, we were just talking in the segment before, and it's okay if I call you Bob?
It certainly is.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So we were just talking about, there's a Gallup poll that just came out, Bob, that says not only obviously unions are on the upswing in terms of popularity, and you're seeing more strikes and you're seeing more organizing and things of that nature, but now people are taking it to its next sort of logical conclusion and saying that they think that unions should have more power, right? And I think that's just an amazing jump. That all of a sudden people are starting to wake up and realize that maybe corporations are just not there for the worker bee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a very important finding, because it's not just then an expression of how you feel, but if you're suggesting that this institution, that the labor movement, should have more power, you're talking about you want to affect policy, and
right.
You want to see laws passed, and you want to elect people that are going to be supportive, and that there's a sophistication.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's funny, this Sean Fain from the UAW said, amongst other really colorful things, I love this guy. He said that every billionaire is a policy failure, and he doesn't think they should exist. I thought that was fascinating that this guy came out and said that. And that's, United Auto Workers. And all of a sudden, I can't tell you, billionaire, and made it a policy argument. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's the appropriate next step to take. You want to see this operationalized in society, and speaking to power is essential.
I think that's right. So let's take a quick step back, if you don't mind, and tell us, from your understanding, because I know there is dispute, happened a long time ago, but what are the origins of Labor Day?
Right. So most historians will point to some actions that were taken in the early 1880s by central labor councils around the country to promote the interest of workers. There was a lot of labor disturbances. There was some significant strikes. They involved a lot of arrest of union workers and union leaders. It involved the use of a lot of violence committed by the state. It involved involved, the National Guard involved, state troopers involved, the military. And so there's lots of disturbances in the late 1870s, 1880s, real difficult labor battles that are happening, frankly, across the country. And so some labor leaders promoted the idea that there needs to be a day that really does acknowledge the role of the labor movement, but not simply in a celebratory way, but to talk about power, to talk about the issues that working people have, and to try to galvanize the general public. So the New York Central Labor Council in 1882 held a Labor Day parade and promoted a day of labor in New York City. And then in the latter part of the 1800s, a number of states actually passed their own legislation. Roughly 27 states, I believe, passed their own laws to acknowledge working people. But it wasn't until 1894 that we finally got a federal law, and that was the product of what was an ongoing serious national railroad strike that started right here in Chicago.
That's right.
In South Chicago, in Pullman.
Yeah.
Pullman, yeah.
So that was Grover Cleveland, yes?
That was President Grover Cleveland. And actually the legislation that's passed really is very transparent in that it speaks to holding a day that will allow working people to feel as if they're being properly respected and honored, but mostly as a way to sort of tamp down the degree of grievance and anger that they were feeling from being exploited in different industries in different parts of the country. So it was kind of a salve that was put on a wound. And
throwing
in the
them a
United
bone.
States,
Yeah.
throwing them a bone, if you will, right? Trying to tamp down this organizing drive, but not really addressing grievances, not really addressing the power imbalance. And in fact, the day that we choose, coming up here in the first Monday in September, is chosen to avoid aligning the celebration of workers in this country with an international movement around worker rights that is celebrated on May 1.
May Day, yeah.
Right, May Day. And that, of course, has a connection to Chicago, too.
Yeah, the Haymarket
That's an
Affair.
outgrowth of the Haymarket, right? So
It all comes back to Chicago.
It all does come back
correct.
to Chicago.
Everything does. Yeah. We position this Labor Day really as a way to kind of distract the community, the general public, the vast majority who are workers, to kind of distract them away from serious economic issues and serious political issues, not to connect them with any sort of larger, raising of consciousness, but to mostly limit it.
I didn't know. I didn't know that. So you're saying, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're saying it wasn't necessarily all altruistic.
No, it certainly wasn't. I mean, in that latter part of the 1800s, workers are working 10, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, children under 5 and 6, incredibly, dangerous working conditions and low pay.
Coming back to Arkansas as well.
What's that?
Those conditions are coming back to Arkansas now as well.
Those conditions are coming back to Iowa,
Yeah, I know.
and a bunch of states are screaming backwards in that regard, Bob.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And by the way, those states are also states that have promoted right-to-work laws,
Of
right?
course.
They've limited what you can bargain. So by that latter part of the 1880s, early 1890s, you've got hundreds and thousands of workers who are on strike, who are calling for some kind of collective power. And the response that we get really is this idea of a holiday as a kind of a celebration of the loyal and faithful citizen. That's actually sort of in the language that supports the legislation, and it's an attempt to sort of forget that we hung 4 people at Haymarket, and that a couple of thousand workers had been killed in these labor disturbances, and hundreds of thousands had been involved in serious conflicts, and thousands had been arrested. And so it was important to disconnect the
That's really
celebration of
interesting.
worker rights in this
I
country.
had no idea. It's like,
from
all
the
right,
workers'
we know
movement.
about all those first. Here, go drink some beer and eat some hot dogs. Everything's okay.
It's like when the employer throws you a pizza party and says, "We really value your
right.
your work, and here is a pizza."
Wow.
Yeah.
Bob, I
And
didn't
you know
know. I
what?
didn't know this.
Yeah.
And what it raises is, should we be celebrating Labor Day as a holiday, which is a day largely of celebrating the role? And by the way, it should be more than just the role of workers. We should be talking about how workers, mostly are empowered. We should be celebrating the role of the labor movement and labor unions. Or is it a day in which labor can express its demands, its rights to lift all workers up? So
Yeah.
should it be a day that expresses resistance?
Flex our muscle.
Well, that is the way resistance is the way it's celebrated almost everywhere else, including Indonesia, Kenya, Greece, Turkey.
Like
right?
you mean May Day?
Well, that's right. They celebrate May Day that way.
Right.
But we celebrate our day of respect for workers as more as a kickback, and it's a holiday in which we don't see it as a day that organizes workers, that lifts workers up, that pursues power. And that's because it really is, our Labor Day is disengaged from May Day, which is celebrated around the country, around the world. And this is intentional. Right? This is an intentional policy. So, yes, we should celebrate it. We should be proud. We should, in a big-time way, raise labor's flag. But at the same time, recognize that we need more than a day of remembrance. We need days that help build up resistance, because when labor resists, we get the Worker Rights Amendment. We overturn right to work in Michigan. We raise salaries.
That's right.
Yeah.
We make it possible for working people to buy homes and send their kids to college, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You can't
That's-
rest on your laurels.
Yeah, that's interesting. These are really good points. I did not know, to be honest with you, that was just a little bone to keep us quiet.
Yeah.
I thought it was more altruistic, and so I just learned something. So I appreciate that. Let me ask you one last question about it. Who started Labor Day?
Yeah, I mean, I heard Bob say earlier some labor leaders got together. I'm pretty sure by that you meant the founder of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters, Peter J. McGuire, right, Bob?
So, well, we should give some proper due. Yeah, that in September, right, of 1882, about 10,000 workers actually took time off, marched to City Hall, to Union Square. They held the first Labor Day parade.
This is in New York,
And so,
right?
in New York, that's
But
correct.
wasn't that guy from Jersey?
Same thing.
Was he? I think
Oh, ouch.
well,
Ouch.
it's kind of all East Coast.
Okay,
I think
fair
it's all
enough.
East Coast.
Well.
It's one for all for one.
Good point. Okay.
So good for the carpenters to sort of kickstart this.
And by the way,
this-
just so for everybody that's listening out there, this isn't the advent of labor unions, right? Labor unions have already, at this point now, when Labor Day is declared as a national holiday, and unbeknownst to me until just now that it was not altruistic, labor unions had already been around for what, almost 80 plus years.
Well, we have unions that are as guilds, if you will.
Sure.
Like the Knights of Labor?
The latter part of the 18th century, but clearly by the latter part of the 19th century, there are a number of unions that are operating, and the AFL-CIO, following the Knights of Labor, right, which is also an iteration of a previous national body. They're founded, and the AFL, the American Federation of Labor, is founded, I believe, in 1886. So by the time we get the National Day of legislation, the national law, the legislation in 1894, the AFL is already a going concern, and yes, labor unions come into existence before the passage of any statewide or certainly national day of recognition. And it wouldn't happen, quite frankly, if the labor movement hadn't been formed. So which is why when we celebrate Labor Day, we need to add, Union Labor Day. Or
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's
recognize
absolutely right. And we take it in the labor movement for granted here on the Workers' Mic, et cetera. But you're right. People don't. And it's been
Union
watered
Labor
down
Day.
like, oh,
I'm going to start calling it Union Labor Day.
yeah, it's not a bad idea. I will tell you this, Bob. This is my takeaway from this. That Labor Day, which I thought was a day of rest for the working class, has now turned into, unfortunately, another day of action, and we need to get aggressive, and we should be out there marching.
Amen.
Right?
That is its origin.
Okay, I'll take it.
And
we'll be out there.
should return to that.
We'll be out there at Eddie Fest
Tomorrow?
Wonderful.
Yeah. Tomorrow.
Hey, Bob, would you stick around for a quick second for the next segment? And I want to ask you a couple of quick questions about a case that just came down called the CMEX case. I'm sure I'm butchering it. National Labor Relations Board. Would you stick around for that?
I would love to. Sure.
Thank you so much.
for the invitation.
Listen, we're talking to Professor Bob Bruno right now about the origins of Labor Day. Really interesting. I didn't know this, and I'm glad I learned it. We're going to be right back. He's going to stick around. We're going to talk about this really interesting case that just came down from the National Labor Board right here on 720 WGN, the Workers' Mic. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I am Ken from the Midwest Coalition of Labor. Sitting to my left is Phil, and we are still lucky to have Professor Bob Bruno on the phone with us. Bob, thanks for sticking around.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, this is a big deal. I really, honestly, I just said off the air, like, I got to take Bob's class because I literally didn't know what you just said. And had I had a labor professor that taught me that, I would have known, and I just didn't. So
Let's go back to school, you and I.
you want to go back to school?
We can pass for undergrads.
Like Rodney Dangerfield?
Yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, that's a great movie to our Gen Z audience.
You just showed your age.
Yeah,
Let's go back to
the triple Lindy.
Good one. I love it. Sam Kinison was in that movie.
He was.
Yeah.
And so was Burt Young.
Who's that?
Paulie from Rocky.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, how do you like that?
He was his bodyguard.
I'm learning all sorts of things today. Some of
really are.
some of it useless,
Yep.
and some of it important.
This is what we're here for.
Yeah. So Bob, we want to talk briefly. There's a case came down from the National Labor Relations Board, and I'm going to butcher the name, but it's called CMEX, I think is how you pronounce the name of the company. And it is, we touched on it for a quick second last week, but it is close to card check, but not exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Bob, just for the audience, what's card check?
So what most of you listeners probably don't appreciate is that under current law, the National Labor Relations Act, under current law, workers could, by simply a majority of workers signing some sort of petition or some card saying they would like to be represented by Union X, by simply presenting that to their employer, the employer could recognize the union.
Right.
There's
no prohibition of sending in a sheet of paper that says 8 out of 10 of us want to be in Union X, and the employer can go, absolutely, come on in.
And the employer, that's
right?
correct.
Okay.
However, the law gives, strangely, what is supposed to be a decision that is wholly within the confines of the workers to decide. The law also allows the employer to pick how the workers can get unionized. So an employer could just accept the petition, and there you go, start bargaining a contract, or the employer can reject the petition and say, no, I want an election,
right.
And the workers are forced to follow the election path. So that's in the current law.
So CMEX came, and there was a doctrine called Joy Silk. It didn't go as far as that, but what it did do was say this: when a union demands recognition, with the majority of employees sign cards or however they do it, the employer has two choices, and one is exactly what you said. The employer can say, "Okay, we recognize you. Come on in. Let's start bargaining," or
Which happens what?
Never.
0% of the time?
Yeah, I'm going to say 0% of the time. Or, yeah, just ask Starbucks.
Yeah.
Or the employer can file what's called an RM petition. which is, I don't even know what that stands for, Bob, but to file its own petition to say, I don't know, even though every single one of my employees signed a card, I don't really think that you guys want to join this union.
Yeah, we're questioning the results.
Right? And so that's their choice now.
Recount.
Right? And what do you think happens during that time frame between the time the employer files the petition and the time the election happens? Non-stop union busting.
Intimidation.
Yeah, that's right.
It's literally a way for the employer to game the system and now hold captive audience meetings and put anti-union literature out and potentially commit unfair labor practice charges. And if and when now the law has changed again, if the employer commits unfair labor practice charges during the pendency of that election, the National Labor Relations Board, instead of rerunning the election, forces the employer now to sit down and bargain and recognize the union. Right? I mean, that's the thrust of this case.
That's correct. So as you correctly noted, it's not a full card check option. It doesn't quite balance, if you will, or shift as it should properly the ultimate decision to the workers. But in a case where unfair labor practices are committed by the employer, it now creates the very real possibility that an election won't be necessary, and the petition, which by the way is a vote, it is a
of course it is.
Will.
And as you know, Bob, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but Illinois in the public sector has card check. And, where I came from at Local 150, once we got card check, we stopped having elections. End of discussion. Here's the cards. That's your vote. Voila, away we go. Let's bargain.
Yeah.
And plenty of research done by myself and others have indicated that if you create a structure for allowing people to vote, to express their will, free of any kind of intimidation or challenge, in the way that we should and largely do run civic elections, when you do this, lo and behold, workers choose to be unionized more often than not.
Of course.
And you get higher rates of unionization, which is, of course, an expression of the will of the worker, and it should be the worker's choice. So this is returning a level of sovereignty to the workers so that their will is expressed. And that is a better, if you will, assessment of how popular unions are amongst working people when you actually return the power to the workers who would most be affected. So this decision could have real bite in shifting some power where it ought to be.
Yeah, and I think
it includes some of the provisions of the PRO Act, right? So this is basically through the NLRB is actually going after in codifying some of the things that were being fought for in the PRO Act that just can't get anywhere in Congress.
That's right. One of them was card check, but the NLRB is giving it a shot. Now, I immediately read something on a union busting website. I'm not going to even give credence to mentioning who it was, but it said, strong dissent calls out the majority for overreach and overruling Supreme Court and federal court precedent and likely resulting in a proliferation of litigation. Now, who loves proliferation? Whatever. Who likes lots of litigation? Lawyers.
Yes.
And I'm a lawyer. It's what's going to happen, Bob. It's going to get tied up in court for a million years, and whatever. And I have another question for you, Bob. Let's say so there already exists bargaining orders, right? GISL is one of them. Right? And the employer does things so egregiously, during the campaign that the labor board says we can never have a fair election here, right? You just got to sit down and bargain. So it kind of already exists. But that being said, so let's play this tape all the way through, Bob. The union says, "Hey, employer, we want to join a so-and-so union. We have 100% support." The employer says, "I don't think you do," and puts on this union busting campaign. The unfair labor practice happen, and now the board says, "Okay, sit down and bargain."
Yeah.
What happens? Much like Starbucks or Amazon, when the employer just doesn't bargain,
doesn't agree in the contract,
or just doesn't even get to the table.
Yeah,
Bob, what happens in that case?
Yeah, you make a really good point, and there's a lot of frustrated worker feelings and worker, if you will, expressions of support for unionization. Because even if you get to the point where the union is recognized, the employer has really a lot of tools, really, under the law to delay bargaining. And in fact, a year after the certification of a union, a very small percentage of workers have actually seen a union contract. And even 2 years out, it's still less than a majority of the workers who voted for a union have actually gotten a contract. So, you're talking about 2 years or more for the majority of those workers to actually operate under their first collective bargaining agreement. And the law simply, only obligates the employer to bargain, quote unquote, in good faith, which is a very subjective term.
Very.
It could be different. We could go a little bit further with labor reforms. Canada, for example, I believe in all of their provinces, actually has something called first contract arbitration.
Sure,
so if you go a year,
we've been talking about that for months now here on the show. Illinois has it, first contracts in the public sector. Illinois has it for all contracts in police and fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Public safety.
Mm-hmm.
We have that here.
So that means it goes automatically to arbitration.
You can't get a contract within the first year, you go to arbitration. And the arbitrator will force a contract down your throat. One or the other, and it's winner take all on each issue. So it's not necessarily one side gets the whole contract. It can be, union's proposal on wages, right, Bob? It could be employer's proposal on insurance, et cetera. But yes, it's interest arb, so that it has an end date in sight.
Yes.
Right now, there's no end date, and you're exactly right, Bob. We've always said, I come from obviously an organizing background at Local 150, and winning the election is the easy part. Literally, I hate to say it, but everybody's like, yeah, rah, this is going to be awesome, That's easy.
Then the real work begins.
Then the real work begins of getting a contract, and that is not an easy task.
No, it can be an arduous task, as we've seen play out with Starbucks. But even under the best conditions, it can be quite a slog. And unions have to deploy a number of techniques to kind of move the employer to ultimately agree to that first contract. And that's an important step, because what we know is that when unions get first contracts, and as you say, even if that first contract makes incremental change, maybe it doesn't bring about everything that the workers wanted. The fact that you've got that first contract, you build on that. You start to develop a mature labor management relationship.
Yeah, you're building a house and you start with the foundation. And I agree with you. But you just said something interesting, and this is where I think some of the nascent unionized workplaces are falling down, and that is you have to have a plan, right? You have to understand that I'm dealing with a corporation that has, the ability to send, my boss to the moon.
In not recognizing you. Correct. Yes.
That has more money than you will ever imagine and can spend it. And literally...
And we'll fight tooth and nail.
Yeah, we'll fight forever.
Yes.
So you have to have a plan to get that first contract. And whether that means economic pressure, political pressure, public pressure, whatever it takes. All of the above. You have to be able to get to that first contract. We take for granted a little bit in the building trades that we have a pretty strong economic power, and that is to shut off an employer's money supply, right? But nobody's shutting off Amazon's money supply or Starbucks or a municipality, right? Money coming in, just never ending.
Too big to fail.
A spigot, right? So, Bob, what do you do about that?
Yeah. Strike me that the very best union organizers, when they're organizing workers, they're keeping in mind that they're not just organizing to get a legal presence in the workplace, but the organizing campaign also includes a strategy for negotiating the first contract.
That's right.
And whatever committees are set up, they're going to continue to pursue and think through, well, what will these demands be? What is practical? What is reasonable in this setting? Any allies that you've developed along the way in terms of organizing workers, those allies need to be, at your side when you get into bargaining. And you have to think, I think, very holistically, what's the regulatory environment look like so that it's a really 360 approach.
It has to
and
be.
It's more.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
has to be.
Yeah.
And for unions that don't do it, I hate to say it, but it's a little bit of shame on you. It's like, hey, rah, we're going to join the union. And all of a sudden people are waiting and waiting. Now they're getting decertified. Now they're losing some elections. Now they're losing interest. Now all of a sudden then it gives the union a bad name, like, hey, they were ineffective or they did nothing for me. And, even though they can say, well, we didn't take a penny in dues, you still didn't really do anything.
Yeah, you got to prepare for battle.
You shine the spotlight on me, and I got in trouble.
Yeah,
I got fired.
They're not going to give it away. The employer, you got to be ready for a fight.
So anyway, we got to go because I could talk, Bob. We could talk about this forever, and I want to talk about.
I was just going to say though, it seems like is there reason to be hopeful though, Bob, in your opinion, about as more and more young people, especially millennial generations, Gen Z, whoever, is very vocal in their support for unions as that generation gets into office and becomes policymakers. Do you think that there's an opportunity for the pendulum to swing back towards the worker, where they will have empowerment and they will be able to have actual penalties that will force employers to the bargaining table and to agree to contracts?
Look, there are a number of things to be really optimistic about, and we know that a lot of public opinion polling, some that's come out just recently, is very supportive. The unions approval ratings for unions is very high, and it's even higher. It's over 80% for the youngest of workers, and those workers also are folks who show a real political sophistication. They tend to be active in political circles. They're engaged in a number of social causes, so they seem to have fully understood that organized labor is an important institution. And frankly, it's become a lot harder for younger people, particularly Generation Z, perhaps. They're coming out of school with more debt. It can be more challenging with high inflation to buy a home, to start a family. I think they've seen the income inequality that has just increased to such shameful levels. They understand that the labor movement is an institution that can empower them in the workplace. And so you're seeing people like cultural workers in Chicago, people at nonprofits,
sure, absolutely,
working in coffee houses,
yes, or museums and not-for-profits. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Right,
you're 100% right about this. I think that is a nice way to end this, Phil. It is an optimistic viewpoint, and we have to be optimistic, but we also have to get out and work really, really hard. Labor has to work hard.
Yes.
It is what it is. We got to use every tool in the tool shed to get what we need to get, and that is better labor laws, more punishment for people that break the laws, a friendlier environment to organize, and I think we're on our way.
Yeah. Just level the playing field.
But level the playing field.
Make it fair. Make it so it's not all stacked in the employer's favor.
Give us a fair shake.
Exactly. That's all we're asking for.
Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat with both of you, and we appreciate having the program out there.
Yes, awesome. All right.
Happy Labor Day.
Yeah, happy Labor Day, Bob.
You've
been listening to Bob Bruno, Professor Bob Bruno, and the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. I'm Ken. Sitting next to me is Phil. Phil, thanks for sitting in today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, that was awesome. Big Labor Day weekend. I really, honestly, I learned something I didn't know. And I'm going to kind of research it a little bit more. I thought it was really interesting what Professor Bruno had to say about the origins of Labor Day.
Yeah, it starts with us. I mean, we can't just drink our beers and eat our hot dogs and burgers. We're
going to do that.
We're going to do that,
Yeah.
but also we need to inform and educate our friends and family.
So here's a couple quick things. We have literally like 3 minutes left. I have a gift card, and here's how you can win it. You can contact the Workers' Mic. I don't care if you send an email to WGN, you can call the Midwest Coalition of Labor, or you can simply hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, I think we have. I don't know. You figure out the way to get a hold of us and come up with, just tell us how you are celebrating Labor Day. And we'll pick one random winner, and you will have a gift card. But I forget what it's worth. It's worth between $50 and $100.
You're really selling this.
I'm really selling this, yeah. So you're going to get a mystery gift card that's worth at least $50, not more than $100. All right.
To where?
Oh, it's like a Visa gift card or
Oh,
something
okay,
like that.
okay.
It's
So
basically cash.
it's cash, baby.
Yeah, yeah. Or I could just send you some cash.
Straight cash, homie.
Yeah, and that's brought to you by Ken Edwards.
What a good guy.
Yeah, he's a decent dude. So, all right. Let's have a quick union-made Labor Day. Ready?
Yes.
What kind of hot dogs are we going to eat?
I'm looking through a list right now, just for our listeners. These are union-sanctioned encased meats that you can enjoy with friends and family.
Union encased meats.
Ballpark Franks,
Butterball turkey.
Dearborn brand. What is
I
Dearborn?
have no
make?
idea. Empire kosher chicken and turkey. Farmer John. Don't know.
Foster Farms Poultry.
Yeah. Hormel beef.
Hormel. Everyone knows Hormel.
everyone- Omaha steaks. Those are expensive. Hebrew National, I think, is on there.
Hebrew National's on the list.
Yeah. You can, by the way, you can just Google union-made Labor Day products. You could hashtag union-made.
Is Vienna not on that list?
I don't think so, unfortunately. But now let's talk about the most important thing, and that is
Beer.
what beer you're going to drink. Ready?
And for you, white wine spritzers.
Good one. Bass Pale Ale, Bud and Bud Light. Oof.
Your favorite beer?
Oh, everybody loves Bud Light. Coors Light, Killian's Irish Red. What else?
Landshark Lager for our Jimmy Buffett fans out there. Mad River Jamaican Red Ale.
Yeah, good luck finding that.
MGD for our White Sox fans. Sam Adams, of course.
Wall-to-wall Union. And then if you are not a drinker, which is fine, there is Barks Root Beer, Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi.
All their products.
All union made. So we got to roll. Everybody have a safe Labor Day. We will see you next week right here on the Workers' Mic on 720 WGN.